Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming bright and early and filling this room. Oh my goodness, we are so happy. We are so stoked to be here. Thank you to our panelists. Look at all these high achievers getting here. First thing in the morning, we are going to sort out streaming. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix all the monetization issues here in 40 minutes. We are going to really rock here. No, seriously, thank you for coming. Thank you. What Dea said, our leader, Dea, said is so true. We know that we love these things because we love getting people together to talk about this business. As you all might have heard, there's a lot changing, which we are absolutely going to get into. But there, especially now, there is no replacement for the value of getting together. And that was just absolutely evident. I wish we'd had a little cam on backstage because these folks have all worked together, working together now, either, across the table or have actually worked at the same company. And it is really indicative of how Hollywood at its best can be kind of a small town. It can be a community. And so again, this is a great panel because these folks all have a lot of opportunity, have had a lot of experience getting through, difficult times, sometimes from different sides of the table, from different sides of the network or studio. And that right now, all that experience, all that camaraderie and goodwill is more important than ever, because I think it is fair to say that we kind of keep saying it, but it keeps being true that the industry is turning itself inside out in terms of business models, exhibition. Lisa's laughing like that. That is truly an understatement. But truly, the way that these folks all work and the programming and the way we all consume content, it's as if somebody just twisted it inside out like a T-shirt in the washing machine. So anyway, here, bright and early, we are going to dive right into it. And with that sort of preamble, I do want to start from all of you. Again, we're our seasoned veterans. We're so grateful for your participation. I throw it out to anybody as a jump ball. How we all know that streaming is, it's not new to say streaming has been a force, but we have seen in many different ways, many big companies have honed their strategies. People are, whereas the target might have been pretty wide a few years ago, now I think from the biggest players, from the Netflixes, from the HBO Maxes, from the STARZ, everybody is honing a little bit in on streaming strategies. A lot of companies, blessed with lots of assets, we're seeing a lot of streaming and linear and threading things together, and to the point of live experiences are becoming a big factor in promoting entertainment. So again, I throw this out to you, and we gave you a little bit of homework in terms of things to talk about, but I throw it out to you in terms of, in the last, say, 12 months, how would you say the honed focus on streaming across the industry is changing your business and the way you work? Jump ball for anybody to grab. Katherine, you're nodding your head.
I'm like, sure, I'll jump in. I think that we are on the other side of peak TV, as everyone acknowledges, and I think the biggest change I've seen in the last year and a half is the focus on budgets and timelines, and I think that's been a positive for the industry. I think we want to make more episodes, more seasons, more shows for our fans, and I think that focusing in on a portfolio of, you've got your giant shows, you've got your mid-sized shows, and then you've got your shows that can be calendared and repeatable and the audience can really respond to. I think that's been a big change. I think The Pit is very much a leader in that, and one that we all were rooting for, because it kind of returns to what TV does best, which is the novelization art form. And so I think, just not having rules of this is a streaming show, but acknowledging that streaming is television, is novelization storytelling, has been, I think, the biggest change. I mean, Laura, I don't know if you want to speak being at Amazon, but that feels like a big change.
Thank you, Katherine. And while I was so busy telling everybody how these folks have worked together, I forgot to introduce them. So I'm going to start. Katherine Pope. We can always do a retake here. Katherine Pope, president of Sony Pictures TV. Thank you for taking that jump ball. Right next to me here, Brett Paul, president of Warner Brothers Television Group. Next to Brett is Laura Lancaster, head of co-production and ongoing series for Amazon MGM Studios. Next to Laura is Alison Hoffman, president of STARZ Networks. Next to Katherine is Michael Thorn, president of Fox Television Networks. And next to Michael is Lisa Katz, president of scripted content for NBCUniversal Entertainment. Did I get everybody's title right?
Totally.
I am.
No, it's exactly.
Every day's different.
That's a score because, no kidding, everybody's title has changed 3 times in 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So, now that we got that out of the way, Katherine, thank you for grabbing that. Anybody else? Okay, you've all had a few more minutes to think now. Really killer answers.
I would jump in based on the handoff from Katherine regarding the pit, which we're incredibly proud of, obviously.
As you should be. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
I mean, it yielded 5 Emmy Awards, and we couldn't be happier. I mean, the thing about that show was, Scott Gemmell and Noah Wiley and John Wells really set out to do something that really hadn't been done yet, in that it sort of ripped some ideas from broadcast, in that it was 15 episodes, which enables viewers to really dig into the characters a little bit more. It allows them for co-viewing as there's weekly drops. But also, it's going to be on a year cadence, which is sort of a broadcast norm, but really hasn't been done in streaming very often, even with fewer episodes. But what it did was it sort of reinvented a medical, genre, because it stripped it all down, and it elevated the form and made it possible for it to work in streaming. And I think, we're doing other medical shows. I mean, there's other medical shows. I know some people up here will talk about them. We have, Lisa and I have...
It's okay to say Doc.
Doc, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But it's true. No,
you'll get a cheer from 2 of the folks, because Doc is a Sony show for Fox Television.
Right.
Grudge match later.
Yeah.
That's right.
With Molly Parker, and it's really good. Just as like the pit is.
But what's interesting about it, and that's right, and Warner Brothers is producing Brilliant Minds. It's also going into its 2nd season for NBC. But all of them are interesting in that you have 2 that are broadcast, you have 1 that's streaming. They're reinventions of a medical genre theme. They all have different entry points, and they all stand distinctly alone. So, in my mind, the takeaway from this is, if you have a quality show, it can play anywhere. I think, audiences have come to expect a certain elevated idea from streaming, and so stripping away some of the music cues and some of, you saw some things that you may not see on broadcast television. But I think that's what made the pit stand out. It was sort of a love letter to ER workers in an ER that,
Very much so.
Yeah.
And as you say, the strip awayness really you just felt like you were in that world, and that feeling of like you can't, you can't escape the blood, the guts, the gore, the drama. It's really...
It puts you in the center of it. Yeah.
But it is, I think you raise an interesting point. Obviously, the new normal for streaming became 8 episodes, 10 episodes. All of you have come up, we've all come up in a world where the goal had been, as many seasons as you can, and in success, shows did 24. Yes, 26. I remember the days of Fox, and they would squeeze, 28 out of 90210 when it was working. How I would love if people would respond to Brett in terms of, because I think basically it is, people in television want renewable resources. The limited series that was 8 episodes and cost 9 figures, like that's a tough business right now. Would you say, Michael, like the move toward, you're doing that a little bit also with Doc, if I'm not mistaken?
I think what the best approach is to look at each show individually and look at how do you tell the best story. Some series can be done in 22 episodes. On Doc, which was a breakout success for Katherine and I this season, and so we're very proud of it, and we looked each other in the eye and said, this show could do 22 episodes.
We were like, remember those days?
And yes, and we, along with Barbie and Hank, the creators of the show, we were like, we know medical shows can do 22 episodes and be great. And so we held hands to go back in time, and it's going really well. But other shows that we do, we have a show actually with Warner Brothers, a new series that's premiering called Memory of a Killer. It's heavily serialized. It's about a very flawed character. And that show is best told in probably 10 to 12 episodes a season because of the point of view of the creators in that story. And I think at least our approach is look at each show and what's the best way to tell that story, and then looking at it, like as Katherine was getting at, how do you make the best show at the best budget possible? That doesn't mean every show is inexpensive. It just means how do you tell the best story and then still remember it's a business? And that tension right now is something that I think we're all dealing with.
The other advantage of long seasons is that it's so easy to disconnect in the streaming world. And so if you have a show...
You mean actually say, I'm going to quit this service for a while?
Cancel so much easier than it was 12 years ago, right?
And you must feel that when you see that.
Yes.
So I think if you can have a successful show that can reliably deliver audience for 22 weeks, 26 weeks, whatever it is, you have a retentive force in your business. We just greenlit Power Origins, the prequel to Power, which is a huge franchise for us, for 18 episodes. We're doing the same thing because that is a juggernaut in terms of driving engagement, in terms of driving subscribers. But also we can look to keep that audience engaged for a longer period of time. You know, it used to be just so difficult to disconnect because you'd have to call your cable company and get on the phone, and then they'd offer you things, and you were often part of a package. And so it's like, well, I'm going to pull the thread on this tier that I'm in, and do I really want to do that? But now it's just all a la carte. It's very, very easy. And so I think what you guys are doing, and in success, it also makes great business sense.
Laura, I'd love your perspective from the studio side in terms of, like, when you hear the episode counts are growing, like, are you pumping your fist like this is a good thing, or how do you all from the studio perspective wage that?
Same as what I think Michael said, what everybody's saying here is, in many ways we are, it is a case-by-case study of what is the right way to tell this story. And for us, where we dove into this a little bit was The Summer I Turned Pretty. And what I found fascinating about the third season of The Summer I Turned Pretty is not only did we expand it to 11 episodes, but we had almost twice as much story and content as the previous season, meaning that all of those episodes were supersized. Many of them were an hour or more. It was 11 episodes. It allowed us to have a weekly experience that built to where it built incredibly successfully, lots of engagement. And then additionally, what we're able to do at Amazon, which is just different, and is to be able to announce the movie. And so we're able to then even expand that storytelling into new realms that furthers the franchise and the story.
Absolutely. Lisa, can you talk about, I know there's obviously a lot going on with NBC, and you have, very soon, you are going to have the NBA back on your air. Yep. Can you talk about sort of how you are looking at the portfolio programming around that and threading your scripted efforts into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in thinking about when everyone was talking, it's a portfolio approach. I think you're looking at each show individually and what's, as Michael said, what's best for that show, what's best for the creative, what's best for the audience. And then at the same time, you're also looking at how that works at the larger portfolio. And for us, being an integrated portfolio that has cable, streaming, linear, and also the studios under the same ecosystem and under the same leadership, that enables us to put things in different places. And I think using sports to amplify the audience and using it to bring more people, and there's so many different ways that we can approach it, because we could have a 22-episode Dick Wolf show, or 5 of them, that air next day on Peacock, and that continues the engagement for that audience. Similarly, you could have something like The Paper, which just premiered in September and is going to have a run on NBC, where we do that weekly and give the audience a chance. So we're going the opposite way this time. That audience a chance to watch it weekly, more like everybody watching it at the same time, like the olden days when The Office first premiered 20 years ago on NBC. And then sometimes that doesn't make sense for a show, so you're looking at something that's exclusively Peacock. So that might be Ted, which we're going to have season 2 coming in 26, and that was our biggest original streaming show that Dirty Bear does not belong on broadcast. So it feels like everything is very intentional and specific to where we can, expose it to as many people, but also make sure we're exposing it to the right people. And it's not one size fits all, and using all of the different assets in the portfolio and sports and live events to amplify and to get as many people to watch the shows.
I think that's a huge change from a couple years ago, and whether it's Amazon or STARZ or, Fox or Peacock, like the ability and desire to try things, try different ways to premiere, different ways to roll out. I mean, like Laura's saying, going from seasons of a TV show into a movie, there's just so much more flexibility in how we're getting the word out. I think like picking up multiple seasons. STARZ, picked up season 2 of the Outlander spinoff Blood of My Blood before season 1 premiered. We're doing 16 episodes of God of War for Amazon. Like actually kind of flexing the muscles that they have as platforms to benefit the shows and to benefit not just behind the scenes with the budget or whatever, but also to benefit how they serve it up to their fans has been an enormous change. And I think one that's been so good for the shows themselves, getting to the actual audience.
Yeah, I agree. There's something about one of the changes over the past year that I think everyone is embracing. It's actually fundamental to our business, is our shared wins and meeting audiences where they are. So for us, it's similar in some ways to the way Lisa was talking about, although our ecosystem is different. So for us, we do the same thing where we leverage our linear platform. We get that huge broadcast audience, but then we have our partnership with Hulu and Fox One. And so you take a show like Doc, for example, and we go all in with a very curated schedule. We put all of our resources, as opposed to launching 10 shows, a couple, and we get a really meaningful audience there. But then it's also our biggest show on streaming. And then Sony just sold it to Netflix. And so we have season 1 on Netflix. And
Number 2
on Netflix.
Put that out there.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see. Watch it.
Just watch it,
Let me ask you.
Watch it, it's so good.
But that is like the spirit of that is, that's an example of, I think, on that show, leveraging our programming strengths and in the case of their distribution strengths in the service of one show and what we can offer. We have a food brand, the biggest food brand, the biggest animation brand. Right. And so when we partner with Hulu or Fox One, we're able to leverage each other's strengths. And I think you see it in different ways with aggregation and other things like that on other platforms. And so this idea of, instead of a walled garden, that people can win together.
More is more.
More is more. Yeah.
I'd like to chime in on that too.
Yeah.
I actually love what you guys are saying because, where you started this is there's a lot of integrated companies and they have these ecosystems. And what I'm really...
And there's been consolidation that I think has forced
absolutely.
a certain focus on business priorities.
Right. And I think what you're hearing from Michael is that they're prioritizing the good of the show. So you've got, Katherine, who's at Sony, who's licensing Fox and Hulu, runs to get the audience and bring him back for season 2. And that's going to be helped most likely by the show's first season appearing on a completely different system.
Right. But let me ask you, Michael, straight up. When Katherine says, hey, we're going to license season 1 to Netflix, is your first reaction, ooh, that's not my network? Or is their first
Do you want to see the emojis? Do you want to see the emojis on our text chain?
I think that this model was proven with Breaking Bad. It was such a lift for it. So
I think it's different for probably each platform in each ecosystem. What we know is, since we're talking about Doc, it's our biggest drama. It's our biggest new drama. We've had to, rebuild our scripted programming and slate post-Disney, and so it's show by show. And so when you've got something that seems to really be resonating, you put a lot of attention on it. We talk almost every day about it. And then it's like, how do you make it succeed on Fox, on Hulu, and then in the case of growing the audience, on Sony, getting an opportunity on Netflix to grow the audience and get new people is only going to serve the show. We, like to your point about Breaking Bad, hopefully it serves season 2 and getting people excited about the show to jump in and watch season. We'll see. It just dropped 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and so it's again, it's step by step. But that strategy, I think, we've seen it work, and we're going to continue to try different things like that.
Absolutely. Alison?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think from a network perspective, and because we are a service being offered, we think about it as a benefit, but you have to be very intentional about how you window programming when you want ultimately the revenue and the subscribers to accrue back to you. So I think with Breaking Bad, that was a high urgency show. So it could window on Netflix, and then it could drive back to AMC because people were dying to come and see it first, wherever it was. I think, as with everything we're saying, it depends on the show, right? Sometimes, if it's not the right show with the right strategy, you can sort of, I would say from the network perspective, you can lose value and you can sort of lose your edge there.
And that's got to be, that's a risky roll of the dice. It's something you probably don't know until you try it, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we could keep going on, but there's a couple of points that I really want to hit, and I really want to hit one thing we've been reporting on all year is YouTube. YouTube has had, we've all seen the numbers. Their growth as they are full, they are no longer this thing you watch on your laptop or on your phone for a few minutes watching cat videos. YouTube has become television, not just YouTube TV, the subscription platform, but truly people are watching more YouTube on their TVs. We saw those trend lines changed. I think it was either late last year or early this year. And YouTube has really been out there. I would love, especially Alison and Laura, for working in premium content. How do you balance, putting a little bit out on free? Because it truly seems to me like in the last 12 months, it has become, it's television, but it's also almost a utility. All roads for promotion. If you've got a trailer, you're putting it on YouTube. When I see Disney, when I hear ESPN pointing people on air to go check out our YouTube channel, I'm like, wow, it is not 10 years ago anymore. I'd love people's experience with experimenting in making YouTube work for you with your high-end, premium, very expensive content.
Congrats to YouTube, first and foremost.
They did not pay for this, but it really is.
Oh, no.
It's a seismic change for us.
I have a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old. There's lots of YouTube happening in my house, and honestly, I really mean that. Congrats to them. They're doing something really special. And I think for us, it is like everything. When something emerges like that, you look at it, how can we participate? How can that be it's part of the ecosystem now. I think that what we've been able to do at Amazon which was one of the great things about Amazon, there are many arms and different ways to participate with folks I think Mr. Beast is a great example of looking at talent that had emerged and then finding a way to invite that talent into the Amazon service and ecosystem. I think Has Been Hotel, my partner Nick Pepper's side on the animation side is another great example of that. So I embrace it. I admire what they're doing, and I would also say I go back to Summer I Turned Pretty again. It's just fascinating to me again, having young kids in my own home and watching them engage in long form as well. So like everything, I think there's room for all of it. I think there are different ways to tell stories, and some of that is going to be longer form, some of that is going to be more episodes of engagement. But yeah, we look for ways to work with them.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think we get excited about YouTube for a lot of reasons. From a marketing perspective, there's no better place to launch a trailer. There's no better place to, drive eyeballs, awareness, scene clips do really well, all of that. But they're also a distribution partner of ours, as is Amazon, incredible distribution partner of ours. So we are distributed through YouTube TV. We were one of the first to launch on primetime channels. And so what gets really exciting, I think, for premium television is you've got a great marketing platform that is driving all of these eyeballs and all of this awareness, and then creating the connectivity to driving subscriptions through your distribution strategy with YouTube. I think we're just at the beginning of that. And I think to start connecting those pipes gets really, really cool for premium television players.
I also think we're all in the voice business, where we're looking for new voices and who have different points of views that can break out different programs. So in addition to marketing, we're definitely looking at creators, maybe more so on the unscripted side than the scripted side. But, as Laura mentioned, Has Been Hotel, that's a show that I'm involved in the animation studio as well. That's a show we made on spec with A24. But the reason we made it on spec was because Has Been Hotel existed on YouTube. There were the creator had over 1 million views on a pilot that she made herself based on characters that existed before she made that pilot. And so these voices are their IP, and they have an audience. And so the question is, how do you leverage their voices in a way that, just like I was saying, we're trying to meet audiences where they are, how do you take those voices and expand their reach and their brand and do things that are a little bit different? Can you incubate? We're certainly looking at potentially incubating new animation voices, potentially some unscripted things, and we're in early stages of what that looks like. But you can't, the marketing for sure, but also there are content opportunities that we're trying to mine and figure out as we speak.
Yeah, and the Has Been Hotel example also goes back to the thing I was saying about being more flexible with your business structures,
Right.
because she still has her YouTube. It's running on both Amazon and YouTube because that was a part of her creation strategy. And for Amazon to take on a show and still allow it to live, that's again, it's like the strict rules of exclusivity, the strict rules of who's a creator, the gatekeepers, all of those are sort of tumbling in such a wonderful way, I think, and hopefully informing each other. And, I think there will be many more examples to come in the Has-Been area. It's a great
Amazon knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, it's an awesome show.
I'd add one thing from a studio perspective, which is it's enabled, in addition to marketing and looking for new talent, it's given us an opportunity through marketing to support our platform partners in a way, because we have all of our portfolio of shows up there, and that also supports
100%.
what we're doing with our platform partners, which was a unique entry into doing
I think
that.
the broad theme here is make it available wherever somebody might find it, wherever somebody might search for it. I think we all have to remember we're all professionals in this business, but to lay folks, all of this is all of this, how you find content. It is really it is a challenge, but it's a huge opportunity. There's such a huge opportunity in navigation in terms of just helping folks. I just know anecdotally from friends and family of mine that ask, "Oh, I've heard about that show," and they have nowhere to find it. And on behalf of the people working hard to produce those shows, I feel bad, but it really does seem like navigation is a challenge. And making, when you have a hit show, having it on a Fox One and a Hulu and Fox Broadcast, serve it up where the folks will find it. That's very interesting. All right.
They're not always the same audiences. So often,
100%.
the people that watch on NBC are a different audience that are watching on Peacock, are a different audience that may be watching it on Netflix if it's, the studio has sold it there. And sometimes you think it's going to be cannibalized or you're going to somehow fragment the audience, but it always aggregates it and you end up reaching more people, which is not something that I expected. But when you look at it, you're like, oh, we're getting more people and different people to enjoy the show.
And it must be exciting to see like different demographics pop
Absolutely.
in different forums. There must truly so much just learning from launching a hit show. In our waning 8 minutes here, I wanted to talk about another fun topic. IP and IP management. I mean, it's become, that's industry shorthand, but, all of you in varying degrees have different, have archives that you can go to, and we've all seen there's been, incredible creative work done about taking a character from this, a theme from that, the cliffhanger from this show 20 years ago, we're going to build that out. We've seen it work really well. We've seen a lot not work very well. I'd love to think about, given all that we've talked about with portfolio and experimentation, how are you thinking about, at least, you have 100 years of NBC and Universal. So, Sony is also 100 years. It was a big centennial the last couple of years. Been a lot of centennials.
Warner Brothers too.
That's right. I wrote it.
It's amazing.
Let me see.
We look
Sam,
awesome.
Harry, Jack, and Abe. I pride myself on knowing the 4 Warner Brothers. But seriously, again, a jump ball to end us here. IP management strategies, how do you think about, with the wealth that you have in your archive? I mean, STARZ is a younger channel, but you've also, the power, you all have done, amazing 3D chess with the Power universe and building that out, and as well as Outlander. How are you thinking about that differently or strategically in kind of the new era for streaming?
It's the show, like it's honestly, you can have the most incredible IP in the world, but you have to make it satisfying apart from that IP as a television show. So I think we think about it as, what are the values of this piece of IP and what are the values we have to keep? And then what's the show? How do we then make that into a television show? And we're lucky to have some incredible PlayStation games. We have Twisted Metal at Peacock, and as I said, we're doing God of War, and we have The Last of Us at HBO. It's all amazing to have that leg up where you have an incredible group of characters, tone, storytelling, but you got to stick the landing on your own show. IP does not, equal a hit, and I think a lot of us have been involved in things that did not work out. And you kind of felt it. And so I think there's a pressure of wanting to live up to the quality of the original. You have to feel that pressure, and you have to really understand that these fans are not looking for a shot-by-shot remake. They're looking to expand the world and to expand their relationship to these characters that they love, whether it's a book or an old show or a game or whatever it may be. So it's actually very challenging. It's probably more challenging than doing an original. You can't hide behind it, but it's also, it's a gift ultimately. I mean, The Last of Us game is beautiful and the show is beautiful, and that's what you strive for.
Yeah, we have a very rich, obviously, library, and I think we're protective of it, because what you really want to hear is what Katherine's saying, is what's the reinvention, what's the modern, what's the contemporary reason for telling that story. One of my favorites, we obviously did Penguin and we're doing Peacemaker, but one of my favorite examples is our Big Bangiverse, because you've got, this multi-camera comedy that launched on CBS, followed by a single-camera comedy in Young Sheldon, followed by a multi-camera comedy, Georgie and Mandy, and now we're about to do a single camera called Stuart Fails to Save the Universe. So, Chuck's been very creative about what he's done with that piece of IP, which is extraordinary, because it's not where you'd expect it to go. And I think that's what's made it so interesting, and each one of them is so fresh. It's such a fresh take on that same story, or those same characters.
Chuck has always been good. I remember reporters would challenge him about, you do multi-cameras and everybody does single cameras, and he said, why are we counting cameras? Which I thought was such a great response, but a great example. Laura?
The same. I think what we're all saying is, and this is what I feel like it comes down to over and over again, is the voice, and what is a writer, a creator burning learning to say. And Katherine and I are sharing the fifth and final season of The Boys, and what Eric Kripke has done from the beginning of that show to where we've seen the final episode of that show is revelatory. I mean, he had so much to say. He was so clear about what it was. And honestly, at the core is characters. I don't know how many Boys fans we have here, but you wouldn't think.
I love it.
I don't think I'm the demo exactly for it. But the last couple of episodes, I truly was shedding tears because inside of thematically what he wanted to say, the key to all storytelling is that you care about these characters. You are invested in what happens to them. And I found in just a pretty overwhelming way how invested I was in the stories. And season by season, Eric had thematically things that he wanted to explore. His own relationship with his father, aging, what that means. And that really comes through on top of all the insanity in that show. At its core, it's really saying something. Obviously, it's saying a lot about our world and maybe our country, but at the end of the day, I was so invested in those characters. And look, at Amazon, we have a lot of these. I would say a show like Reacher and a property like Reacher there were different versions of that. When Nick Santora was married with Alan as our star, it just reinvented it. And that show to me is just all about justice and the little guy, and that thematically has really resonated. Ron Moore doing God of War, and when Ron came in, maybe not who I would have thought would have attached to this game IP. He's incredibly engaged. There's a father-son story there as well that really spoke to him. And so he's come in, and again, you care about these characters within what is going to be also what streaming does really well, what Sony does really well. It's going to be a big world-building place that you're going to enjoy. So you're going to be entertained, but at the core of it, they're people that you care about and that you hopefully relate to.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting. I think Katherine said, sometimes a show based on IP can be harder than an original. I want to wrap up with a question for Lisa about you have the mother of television franchises in Law & Order, and I was watching last night. You've got an incredible crossover coming.
Yep.
You've got the Chicago universe. Can you talk about, Law & Order, as we know, is a decades-old franchise. Can you talk about how you have been able to keep that fresh and keep new iterations coming?
Absolutely. I think, again, starting with Dick Wolf and with what the fans like, and then when I came, we had SVU was there, then we brought back Law & Order, and then continuing to cross those over and return to the relationships, whether it be Olivia and Stabler, or Benson and Stabler, or the crossovers that Dick does. I think finding ways to really refresh with casting, with storylines, with crossovers, with big events, and keep them relevant and keep them something that is must-see TV. And then people fall in love with the characters. People are very invested in the storylines, and it gives you the opportunity to spin them off or do different versions. So it's like working with this amazing group of people that can go in so many different directions.
Obviously, and pillars of your schedule, as we talked about, where we started talking about the importance of renewable resources. I have more questions, but our time is short. I am so grateful, everybody, for this conversation. Truly, I hope you've been taking notes, because these are top folks giving insights. Thank you.